The peculiar way she treats Boy, staring at him and frightening him as she does. You remember when he was a baby how she used to take away his bottle to see what he would do? Rose is perfect with the child, but Helen... The old woman put down her work on the table. A little silence fell, and through the silence the loud ticking of the dining-room clock. She wanted to speak her mind to Anne once and for all about the way she and Henry were treating Helen, ruining the child, but the ticking noise distracted her. She could not think of the words, and sat there stupidly, her brain going tick, tick to the dining-room clock. "How loudly that clock ticks," was all she said. "Oh, there's Mother off the subject again, giving me no help or encouragement," thought Anne. She glanced at the clock. "Mother, if you finished that frock, would you go into the kitchen and heat up some coffee, and perhaps cut a plate of ham? Henry will be in directly. I'm practically through with this second frock by myself." She held it up for inspection. "Aren't they charming? They ought to last the children a good 2 years, and then I expect they'll do for school, lengthened and perhaps dyed. I'm glad we decided on the more expensive material," said the old woman. Left alone in the dining-room, Anne's frown deepened and her mouth drooped, a sharp line showing from nose to chin. She breathed deeply and she pushed back her hair. There seemed to be no air in the room. She felt stuffed up, and it seemed so useless to be tiring herself out with fine sewing for Helen. One never got through with children, and never had any gratitude from them, except Rose, who was exceptional. Another sign of old age in Mother was her absurd point of view about Helen, and her touchiness on the subject. There was one thing, Mrs. Carsfield said to herself. She was determined to keep Helen apart from Boy. He had all his father's sensitiveness to unsympathetic influences. A blessing that the girls were at school all day. At last, the dresses were finished and folded over the back of the chair. She carried the sewing machine over to the bookshelves, spread the tablecloth, and went over to the window. The blind was up. She could see the garden quite plainly. There must be a moon about. And then she caught sight of something shining on the garden seat. A book. Yes, it must be a book, left there to get soaked through by the dew. She went out into the hall, put on her goloshes, gathered up her skirt, and ran into the garden. Yes, it was a book. She picked it up carefully. Damp already, and the cover bulging. She shrugged her shoulders in the way that her little daughter had caught from her. In the shadowy garden that smelled of grass and rose leaves, Anne's heart hardened. Then the gate clicked, and she saw Henry striding up the front path. "Henry!" she called. "Hello!" he cried. "What on earth are you doing down there? Moon-gazing, Anne?" She ran forward and kissed him. "Oh, look at this book," she said. "Helen's been leaving it about again. My dear, how you smell of cigars," said Henry. "You've got to smoke a decent cigar when you're with these other chaps. Looks so bad if you don't. But come inside, Anne. You haven't got anything on. Let the book go hang. You're cold, my dear, you're shivering." He put his arm round her shoulder. "See the moon over there by the chimney? Fine night. By Jove, I had the fellows roaring tonight. I made a colossal joke. One of them said, 'Life is a game of cards.' And I, without thinking, just straight out." Henry paused by the door and held up a finger. "I said, well, I've forgotten the exact words, but they shouted, my dear, simply shouted. No, I'll remember what I said in bed tonight. You know I always do." "I'll take this book into the kitchen to dry on the stove rack," said Anne, and she thought as she banged the pages, "Henry has been drinking."